everyone! Today I'm going to give a lecture on preventing infections. And this lecture you can closely follow along with if you have your textbook, Healthy Young Children by NAYC. Actually by Susan Aronson. You don't need to follow along with this textbook, but there are some helpful tables and I highly recommend that you read further on these topics, as this lecture is going to just provide you with just an overview on these topics. So we're probably going to go maybe 10-15 minutes for this, and feel free to pause or to just follow along as you wish. So we're going to talk about the different topics in preventing infections, and we'll just kind of get started by increasing germ resistance. So let's see if I can move this. Perfect. Okay, so the first thing you want to do in a center when you're thinking about preventing infection is increase people's resistance to germs. And that, when I say people, I mean both children and caregivers, teachers. So for infants, especially infants under age 3 months, but all infants up through 1 year, you want to encourage breastfeeding or breast milk. So that for children in your center, it would mean pumped breast milk available. And when that's possible for families, that's the best immunity for all children under age 1 year. It's the best way to make sure that they are resistant to germs. For everybody else, and including infants of course, for children and adults, leading a healthy lifestyle is the best way to stay resistant to germs. And so some of the things that you want to think about when leading a healthy lifestyle are getting an adequate amount of sleep, getting your 7 to 8 hours a night, and for children that might mean 10 to 12 hours a night depending on their age. Getting a good amount of water. So if you're a teacher, make sure that you have a bottle of water with you and leave it somewhere in the classroom so that you can always sip on it. Water is the best way to keep your immune system functioning the way that it should. So like sodas and coffee beverages don't increase your immunity to germs as well as water does. So while a lot of us enjoy that morning cup of coffee, make sure that throughout the day you're also drinking a ton of water. And that goes as well for children. Make sure you're offering water breaks throughout the day. And for young children, especially in ages 0 to 5, they don't know when they need a water break. So that might mean, hey everybody, now it's time to get a sip of water, or if kids in your classroom all have their own water bottles, you might say, okay, just like you might do a group potty break, you might do a group water break, where everybody takes a break and drinks some water. You also want to think about good nutrition. So for children, this means eating a healthy and balanced diet. We'll talk more about that later in the quarter, as well as for you, making sure you're getting a lot of vitamins and minerals through food. That helps your immune system fight off germs. If you're eating just French fries for lunch, that is not going to be a great way to set up your immune system for success to fight off even just the colds and the flu during flu season. Skincare. Skincare is another way to increase germ resistance. So what this means is, we'll talk about hand washing in a minute. By skincare, I mean making sure that the hands, or any other place on the body, but oftentimes with the hands, because we who work with children 0 to 5 tend to wash our hands a lot, which is great, but that can also lead to dry, cracked, or broken skin. So you might want to use an unscented hand lotion after hand washing to make sure that you don't have open spaces on your skin. That goes the same for cracked lips, using an unscented chapstick or some kind of lip protectant to make sure that germs aren't getting in that way. And then also for children as well as adults, oral hygiene. Oral hygiene is a very important way to make sure that we keep germs from taking over our body. So bacteria lives in mouths and it can spread, and so some programs have brushing the teeth after breakfast or after lunch. I know Head Start programs do. Not all programs do, but if your program doesn't, that might be something you would consider, doing a midday toothbrushing thing. It can be kind of fun. It can be kind of chaotic, but also kind of fun. All right, so we want to increase our germ resistance. What else do we want to do to prevent germs? Let's see if I can click this forward. You want to reduce the number of germs that are present in your classroom. So that means when you're sneezing or when you're coughing, doing that into the elbow. and teach kids to do it when appropriate, age appropriate, into the elbow as well. Making sure that a clean, fresh tissue is used if you're sneezing or if you're wiping a nose. That is a good way to sort of reduce germs from spreading in the classroom. Another way to reduce germs is to create space for napping. So when kids are napping, they're all breathing, and sometimes they're breathing out of their mouths when they're sleeping, and that can send a lot of germs out into the air. So making sure that kids aren't just like face to face with their cots during nap time, but that there's some space. And if there's not a lot of space in your classroom, that might mean just head to toe, setting up the cots head to toe, or spacing them out as best you can. This helps aid in restful sleep anyway, so it's already going to be good for kids' sleep time. The best way to reduce the number of germs, and you hear this repeated over and over and over again everywhere you go, and there's a reason for that, is frequent hand washing. Frequent hand washing and appropriate hand washing is the number one way to reduce the number of germs. Adults in the classroom should wash hands when they come in the door. First thing you do when you enter a child care center should be wash your hands. After diapering, after the adult uses the toilet, before eating, after being outside, any other time you feel like it, after sneezing, after coughing, do the proper 10 to 20 second hand wash. I know sometimes it can be quicker to use hand sanitizer, and a lot of centers have a bottle of hand sanitizer sitting out just for this purpose. I want to warn you about hand sanitizer for a couple of reasons. One, while hand sanitizer does kill germs, hand sanitizers have also been linked to germ-resistant bacteria. So there's research out there now that's showing that it might not be as beneficial to children's immunity as we once thought. So even adults or children using hand sanitizer in the place of good old-fashioned soap and water might be harmful to children in terms of creating resistant bacteria. And there's some research out there that's even suggesting that overusage of hand sanitizer in overly sanitized environments are contributing to children's allergies. So children today have more allergies, like peanut allergies and even hay fever, have been linked to over-sanitization of the environment. So hand sanitizer is good in a pinch if you've got nothing, like if you're out at the playground and say I worked in an in-home program once where we just brought the diaper bag with and the babies to the playground. And when we brought those babies to the playground, we'd be doing diaper changes at the playground sometimes. And at that playground, they didn't have a place with soap and water to wash hands. So yeah, then you would use a hand sanitizer. But as a rule, soap and water is the best and safest way to clean your hands from germs. And this last one, and you might not know, or maybe you do, know about this, is having fresh air. So opening windows in your classroom, opening the door, letting the fresh air go through 2 or 3 times a day, or if it's good weather, having them open just to let in fresh air all day long. But sometimes in the colder weather, we might just let the air in for a burst and let it flow through for 10 minutes, even 5 minutes. Letting in fresh air lets out the germs and lets in clean air. So airborne germs are reduced by the amount of fresh air that's in classrooms. When I used to teach over in Germany, in my kindergarten classroom, people over there were very, very interested in fresh air. It was a very big thing, and people would walk into a room and say, ooh, the air in here is bad, it's stale, this is not good for kids, we need to get the fresh air in. And they'd open up all the windows, let the fresh air in for a few minutes, and then close all the windows back up so people didn't get too cold or anything. But over there, people were very, very aware that fresh air and germs, it was a good way to get rid of germs. After I came back to the U.S., I was surprised that not as many people did that. I guess I had never known about it until I moved over there, and now research is showing that it's also an important way to reduce germs. All right, what else? You can also modify your classroom area. So this is going to be sort of the same types of things I said on the last slide. Making sure your classroom has sufficient space. So I know space is at a premium in child care centers, but making sure that there is space between children. And sometimes that might mean spending more time outside where there is more space. There are fewer airborne germs if the kids are outside for more hours a day. So when you can, keep kids outside. It's great for their health. It's great for their mental well-being, and it also reduces germs. Keeping kids at separate areas is also important. Some centers have sort of combined classrooms. I worked in a center once where it was one preschool classroom on one side and the other preschool classroom on another side, and we're only separated by a half wall. And so germs could travel over the wall. So kids would get a lot more sick because it's 2 classrooms almost in one big space. And then also cleaning your surfaces. We'll talk about sanitization in a minute, but when you're choosing items and tables and whatever kind of materials in your classroom, think about things that are easily washable. So even in like your cuddle corner, your library area, choose pillows and those kinds of things that you can easily just throw in the wash at the end of the week and wash off germs and run them through the dryer too. And then of course surfaces that, like tables and things that are non-porous, that you can clean adequately. All right. Also, you want to think about what are your center policies. So you might have such policies in your center like requiring immunizations. You might also have a policy around reportable illnesses. So these are things to discuss with the center director and what your program policies are. These are very important things to keep all the children healthy and safe. In your textbook, there's a lot more information on what reportable illnesses are and what immunizations should be required in all child care centers. I know here in Washington, we've had a recent measles outbreak that is completely preventable by immunizations. Most child care centers should have a policy in place that requires children to have their measles vaccination before walking through the door. There are also things called exclusion practices. So this just means, sounds kind of mean, but it's actually in best interest of everybody, is who stays home when. So in your textbook, you can find a list, and if you're following the textbook that I held up before, there is a list on pages 16 and 18 have lists of illnesses when you should not ask children or staff to stay home, and a list of illnesses of when children should and faculty and staff should stay home. Another thing, and I just put this as a quick bullet, are your bloodborne pathogens. This means diseases that are transferred by blood. So you might take a class on this. You'll learn more about that in this class and especially in this chapter. So I'll leave it at that for now, but I'll leave us to discuss it further later. All right. We have, let's see how much more we have. Okay, this is my last slide. So sanitizing. Sanitizing is a big thing in child care centers, and there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Now, we'll talk more about this in one of our discussions, but I want to give you a quick overview here in this lecture. There are a few different ways you can sanitize surfaces. Some centers, and a lot of centers, use a bleach solution. That means a tiny little bit of bleach in a whole lot of water. Licensing loves this, and they recommend it. Some folks, however, might be concerned about the vapors of bleach being in the air for children to breathe in. And also might be concerned that that bleach residue, although is very, very thin, might have some toxic properties. Now, there's very little research to show that there are toxic properties on surfaces that are treated with a bleach solution, but some people, including myself, are a little more cautious about what to sanitize with bleach. Now, before I say this big caveat, there are some things that can only be killed with a bleach solution. Like when I worked in a child care center years and years ago, we had a rotavirus outbreak. Then we needed bleach solution. We had to use it. But besides the extremes, there are alternatives out there. So there are things like a vinegar solution. You can use white vinegar and mix that with water. It makes a very good cleaning solution. There are commercially available cleaners out there that you buy in spray bottles. And there are some that are more basic chemical-based. And then there are also the non-toxic ones. They also have chemicals, but they're considered non-toxic, meaning that if a child were to get it in their mouth or something, it wouldn't be poisonous. And so some centers are much more conscientious about what types of cleaners are used and what kinds of vapors are in the room and what's going to get in kids' mouths. So we'll talk more about this later in a discussion, but I just kind of want you to think about the ideas of the different types of sanitization that are out there and that it goes beyond just bleach solution. And licensing even approves other types of cleaning besides just bleach solution. All right, I'm going to wrap it up there. Please, please, please read more thoroughly in your textbook. Like I say, this is an overview of these topics. As you read your textbook, the more detailed, nuanced aspects of these topics will come more clear to you. That's all for today. Have a great day.